Hello and welcome to the Camo Grind, a series where I analyze every weapon in Advanced Warfare to help you complete every camo challenge by giving specific strategies, loadouts, and more, including ranking every weapon variant in order of usefulness based on several factors to give you an idea of what you should use and what you should redeem. I don't, however, just make this stuff up. My advice and opinions are based on thorough testing, in-game coded stats, and of course my own experiences in using these weapons and weapon variants, of which I own many, to complete every marksman challenge and earn every royalty camo. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, but mostly gentlemen, because you know, demographics.
But here we are, the final episode of this show, the Camo Grind. Maybe it doesn't mean very much to you, but it's been a journey for me. However, it isn't a sad occasion to see it end. It actually makes me quite content that it has ended this way, with how I've actually managed to cover every weapon in some form, even if they didn't get their own episode. That's fine, but we are on time, right before Black Ops 3. I had planned for the finale to be last weekend, then being sick got in the way. I might still kind of sound like that, sorry, but that's alright. That is why I left myself an extra week when I was trying to plan out these last 5 episodes, and it all worked out in the end. Anyway, I plan to talk more at the end of the video with all the closing remarks and whatnot, not only about this series, but about Advanced Warfare as well. I thought about making a separate video talking about AW, but I really didn't want to make a big formal review or anything, like what they did right, what they did wrong kind of thing. There's already a lot of that out there on the internet, and it's all just opinion. I didn't see the point in me adding to it. Anyway, that wrap-up talk is for later. We still have 4 remaining weapons to cover: the Tac-19, Bulldog, Stinger M7, and Heavy Shield. So how about them Tac-19 variants? Well, I would say the Royalty or Sledgehammer is the best, which makes sense. If they're gonna name a variant after their own studio, you'd hope that they make it pretty good. That being said, it isn't crazy good. You could even make an argument for a different variant being better. This ranking for the Tac-19 is more subjective than some cases where there's a clear winner. The Sledgehammer tightens up your spread by 20%, which isn't a big deal for some other weapon classes like assault rifles or something, but I find that it is a very helpful quality for a shotgun. It should help tighten up that pellet spread and help you get more one-shot kills as long as you're on target. On top of that, you're given an extra shot before needing to reload as a little bonus. The only downsides are 4% slower movement speed and a tiny sprint out time nerf. The sprint out time isn't significant to me, and with the movement speed, I guess I should treat it more like a real downside. Usually when I see a movement speed decrease, I have a hard time even considering that as a thing that affects my decision making. Like for sniper rifles, that's another class where you often see movement speed changes, and I couldn't care less if I run 2% slower with the Atlas 20mm or something. Like, who cares? Will you ever notice that? But I suppose with a shotgun, movement speed is fairly important. Getting all up in people's faces is what you need to do with a shotgun, so keep that in mind. But I'll usually have lightweight on a shotgun class anyway, and I feel like this being the only nerf doesn't make a huge negative difference when you look at all the positives. One other cool thing about the Sledgehammer variant is that it has something like a secret attachment. You can find this thing on some weapon variants. I'm sure this isn't the only one, but you'll notice that there is this range meter thing. It probably won't be very useful in gameplay, but it is cool. It actually shows you how far away you are from what you're looking at. Those green bars mean that you're dealing the maximum close range damage, which is 50 per pellet for the Tac-19, and then that damage drops off to 30 when it turns yellow. And just to show that this does actually appear to be measuring your actual range and not just being a useless trinket that displays fake information, you'll see that my distance to that door is green when I'm standing on just about the edge of the 5 box here, but if I use advanced rifling, it's green all the way back to the edge of the 4. So just a cool little thing if you didn't know. I doubt you'll ever look at it during a gunfight and decide whether you should shoot or not, but probably isn't going to be very useful. Oh well, the more you know. Next up is the Tac-19 Roundhouse, which features a fire rate increase allowing you to shoot a bit faster. It's a pretty tiny change, but I bet you'll notice it regardless. And your short range distance is increased, which is great. That damage drop off of 50 damage per pellet to 30 is a big deal, so you want to extend that range as much as possible. And once again, the only nerfs on this weapon are on the movement speed and sprint out time, except only a 2% decrease in movement speed this time, so even less significant. And in third, I put the Uppercut. Another professional, this one increases your damage by 1. If you don't know what that means with the shotguns in this game, your actual damage numbers don't change at all. Instead, you get 1 extra pellet in your spread. So usually there are 8. With +1 damage, you have 9. And the Uppercut also reduces your hip spread by 10%, which, as I said, I really like for shotguns. So those are 2 really good things. And one of the nerfs is only 2% movement speed decrease once again. but the reason it is in third is that it also nerfs your short range. So there is a specific short range engagement area where this will really negatively affect you, although I think overall that hipfire bonus and extra pellet will come in handy more often than that range will hurt you. The light trigger, haymaker, and breacher are also okay, IMO, but I am not a fan of any of these. The bang stick elite here only features +2 movement speed, a small sprint out time buff, and the same small rate of fire buff again, so you may find yourself feeling a little faster and more agile with this weapon, but it also comes with a double range decrease and hipfire decrease, two things that I would value highly, so I am not a fan. Moving on to the other shotgun we will cover today, the Bulldog semi-automatic option. I think this used to be the best shotgun in the game actually, but the Tac-19, which was already good, has been buffed since, making it probably the most viable now. So there is one Bulldog variant that stands far above the rest, the Face Hammer. I think this is one of the best variants in the game. I don't mean best weapon, like I'm sure you would fare better with a Bal 27 overall, but in terms of improvement over the base weapon, the Face Hammer is incredible. It's exactly everything you want in a Bulldog variant. You get an extra pellet in your spread, excellent for damage output, 20% tighter hip spread, which is excellent for shotguns, and the nerfs are just a tiny sprint out time nerf, and a restriction on optical attachments, which is a complete non-problem. I don't know why you'd ever waste a class point on a sight for a shotgun anyway. With the Bulldog, you'll either be hip firing or aiming at close range, and the clean little iron sight on the Bulldog is more than enough precision for that range. So the Face Hammer is basically perfect. If you have it, you have more of a reason to use the Bulldog, because it makes a significant change in the weapon, kind of like how it becomes much more worthwhile to use the ARX 160 if you have the Hole Puncher or Steel Bite. So it's hard to compete with the Face Hammer, but in second I have the other elite, the Mancy, and it is a simple gun. All it does is improve your hip spread by 10% and give you a free target enhancer sight. And nothing else. There's nothing bad to worry about, there's nothing fishy going on, Sledgehammer isn't trying to trick us for once, this is just a simple gun. I know I just finished talking about how having a sight is pointless, and I stand by that, but if it's given for free, it's not a bad thing, it's just a thing. And that free 10% hipfire improvement is what I'm after, the target enhancer is just there, and that's fine. And then after the Mancy, well, look at that. I didn't really think any of the other Bulldog variants were very good. You could maybe make a case for the Breacher, or maybe something else here, but I didn't see anything I liked, so I would stick with either of the elite variants or the base weapon. Just be on the lookout for that Face Hammer, that's the one you really want. Now, the second to last weapon to cover is the S0ur M7. I mentioned in the last episode how it was funny that the Moz and Mayhem launchers are practically what started the Camo Grind, but the third launcher, the S0ur M7, was pushed off all the way until now at the very end. And there is, of course, a reason for that. First, how about the variants? Well, this is the first time in a while that there aren't any variants to talk about. Of course, the 5 S0ur variants don't change the weapon performance, they're just skins. I personally prefer the Firehawk over the Nighthawk, but they both have some pretty cool details, like that Hawk logo on the Firehawk and the M7 Hawk text on the side compared to the golden jewel-encrusted theme of the Nighthawk. Anyway, it's completely subjective, so when there are no variants to talk about, we usually talk about the camo challenges, and that is exactly why this weapon has been pushed off for so long. The launcher challenges more or less revolve around destroying kill streaks. There's only one challenge related to killing players, and it's the same for all launchers. So the Moz and Mayhem are super hard, while the S0ur is very easy. Stuff like destroying UAVs and Paladins, which is hell for the Mayhem, is a walk in the park with the lock-on S0ur. It may still take some time to wait for people to call in Paladins, but at least there isn't all that nonsense that there is with the Moz and Mayhem, like needing to be on the right map and needing an LMG class to weaken it first, or taking endless free fire shots at UAVs and all that. Probably the most frustrating thing with the S0ur is just waiting for people to call in Goliaths. Those are fairly rare and sometimes hard to get to and lock onto. You can try to help it along by earning your own Goliaths and dropping them and letting enemies steal them. That's always an option you can attempt. But overall, after you're done waiting for that to happen, the S0ur shouldn't be a problem. Even the player kills challenge, which you might expect to be harder than the Moz or something, for example, but not really. The S0ur can lock onto players in this game, and it's pretty easy to pull off, especially in objective game modes where people are grouped up and maybe not paying as much attention to you. Tons of easy multi-kills to be had. It reminds me of the Javelin from Modern Warfare 2 and 3. It's a bit of a cheesy weapon. You need to get a good angle and take some time to lock on, but it's very powerful. So I think that's a good overview of the Stinger M7, and that leaves us with the final weapon, if you want to call it that, the Heavy Shield. Once again, no variants to talk about. I like the Salvation here, but these variants are all, again, subjective, and look at that, we've completed this entire spreadsheet, all the gaps filled in. Of course, there were never any plans to make episodes for DLC weapons, and just no time for that, but I did do the research and make the ranking here for anyone curious. You can check it out. Now let's take a look at the Heavy Shield challenges. Oh wait, there aren't any. For some reason, not sure why, it seems like coming up with some Heavy Shield challenges would be pretty simple, like get 50 melee kills, stun 25 people with the shock plant, deflect a certain amount of damage, get kills by switching to a different weapon quickly. I could go on, and it is in the special category, so it would fit in with the crossbow and MDL, but instead, there are no challenges and no camos for the shield. Darn, so what is there to talk about exactly? Well, there is a marksman challenge for the Heavy Shield. Get 500 kills with it. And in the intro, I mentioned earn every marksman challenge, so it seems appropriate to talk about the shield. And it was also requested that I give some shield advice. So as far as the marksman challenge, I've done tons of thinking about this and going back and forth, and I will say that it is easiest to get shield melee kills in hardcore. Of course, it makes sense, you can get one-hit shield kills in hardcore, that's pretty common knowledge, but that doesn't make it definitively easier. You also die faster. If the enemy gets one small angle on you, you're gonna drop. There's no time to readjust your shield. So melee kills, I think, are easier in hardcore overall. But if you're just looking to have fun and play well, I think it is easier in regular modes to play with the shield. I have a lot of success with a class like this, relying on the fact that the swap to the Akimbo Atlas 45s, or firing a spike drone, is insanely fast with fast hands. It gives the other person no time to react. It's very effective and easy to get up close to someone and pull one of those out to finish them. Shield melee attacks are somewhat effective with fast melee, but it will still often get you killed in regular modes. So a class like this is very good, I think, although it is another somewhat cheesy strategy. You can do what you will with that. But I think that is the end of the advice I have to give. I am talked out. Nothing more to say about camo challenges or variant rankings. Isn't that something? It has been quite the journey, like I said previously, and I am genuinely happy with how this wrapped up. It would have really sucked if I ended with this spreadsheet not being complete. Some of the stuff I said in the first episode still holds true. I knew from the beginning this wasn't the normal time to make a COD weapon advice series. Usually you want to start something like this in November or December when the game is new and people want to learn, but this one started in May. I knew from the beginning it would be unlikely that there would be time for an episode for every gun. I mainly planned to start with the camo challenges for the Moz and Mayhem since those were super hard, and then cover episodes that were suggested by you guys, but a ton of stuff was suggested, and over time the series slowly evolved to be more focused on the variant ranking thing, because the camos were no longer difficult or no longer unique. I'd already talked about them. So suggesting the best variant was realistically the best way to help with the camo challenges. I always thought this was a good format that was missing from YouTube, because all the tons of videos I see out there about variants seem to be picking a variant and then talking about it. Like, here is the EM1 Poner Elite Variant Review Showcase, which is cool and entertaining, and you probably learn something about the weapon. Maybe you learn that the EM1 Poner is the best EM1 variant. But that doesn't help you pick the best variant out of what you have if you don't have the Poner, which is why I wanted something like this spreadsheet. I figure if you have the EM1 M-Coil and Quantum and Dimension and LEL, and you want to know which one of these should I use, I feel like this ranking is a good way to give advice. Obviously, like I said, it started in the month of May, which is after a lot of people have lost their interest in the game, but the idea behind continuing this series is that it will last into the future. I doubt AW is going to be super popular going forward. Black Ops 3 looks incredible, and a lot of people have moved on from Call of Duty altogether, but you'd be surprised, like I always am, when someone comments on a Black Ops 2 video thanking me for some camo tip video I made back then. Really terrible video, don't watch it. But by doing the Camo Grind series late, the weapons didn't change much in patches and updates constantly. If I did this series when the game launched, probably over a third of the information would be incorrect by now. But since it was made later, a couple things like the XMGs getting buffed happened, but not very much, so I hope this is somewhat future-proof. With that said, there we are. That's a wrap on the Camo Grind, and that's also, pretty much, a wrap on Advanced Warfare as Black Ops 3 releases in just a few days. If I were to say a few words, I think Sledgehammer did some good things that needed to be done to keep Call of Duty interesting, and obviously some bad things too. I think if you're looking for opinions on the internet, you will find an overwhelming vocal majority of hate on the EXO movement and supply drops and all of those evil things. But I did not mind it. The variants should have been kept out of competitive, obviously, if they're trying to turn COD into an esport. That was a bit of a fail, but I really don't see COD as an esport. It's an arcade shooter. You run around and earn points and level up. It's fine to have variants in that kind of game. In Black Ops 3, there will be some sort of supply drop system, I hear, but only for customization, nothing that gives you any advantage, and I'm looking forward to that. If you want to watch a competitive esport shooter, though, I mean, Counter-Strike is always there. DreamHack Cluj just wrapped up today. Those majors are always exciting to watch. Anyway, overall, I didn't hate the movement in AW. It was just a change of pace. The gameplay got stale, as it always does, but for a little while, the supply drops kept things interesting, and then it was really the challenges that kept my interest. In my mind, there was one thing I think Advanced Warfare did better than any other COD, and that was how rewarding I think it felt to do the challenges. Some people don't really care about challenges, that just isn't why they play the game. But it is something I enjoy, and all that crazy character, golden customization suit thing, that made it fun to earn the gun camos. I've always enjoyed earning the gun camos. It's just a grindy part of the game that I like to challenge myself to use the other weapons. Sometimes it isn't very rewarding, but I really liked doing it this time around. For that gear set, it signaled completion to me, and once I completed that set, I was pretty much done playing, but in a good way, a satisfied way, not a screw this game kind of way. Anyway, not a bad entry in the series overall. Some people have different reasons that they may hate it for, and they aren't wrong, it's just different preferences. I think, though, without any more talking or formalities, it's time to end this series. Thank you all for watching. It's such a cliche to say, but it was pretty dang cool that a lot of people were still very supportive of this series, even with Advanced Warfare fading out. When I was wondering, does anyone really want to watch this? That support definitely kept me going. Obviously, if everyone hated it, I wouldn't have continued. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you next time, this Friday most likely, with Black Ops 3.